Okay guys, so what we're going to talk about today is scaling our fifth scale dirt oval cars. So I ask, in being around and talking to different people, hey, have you scaled your car? Have you scaled your car lately? And it's surprising how often I hear the response no, or no, I've never scaled my car. And I think the reason a lot of people don't scale their car is because it's perceived as complicated, and you can make it complicated. So if I had to title today what we were doing, I would say making scaling a car simple, or scaling a car 101, scaling for dummies. That would fit me. So I've just simplified the way that we're going to go about scaling a car. I'm a weight fanatic, so I'm not planning on adding ballast to my car to gain left side weight or tail weight or whatever. So if we're not going to add ballast to the car to change the dynamics of that, then it eliminates really, it's nice to know what your left side weight is and what your cross weight is. But at the end of the day, what I've learned on these fifth scales is if I'm not going to add weight, all that's irrelevant. The biggest thing I need to know is my ride height and how much left rear wheel weight I have. When I say left rear, I'm referring to how much does the left rear weigh more or less than the right rear. So I keep it really simple. I run about 2 pounds of left rear, 2.5 pounds of left rear, depending on the type of track conditions. So if you were, for tuning purposes, if we're paying attention to the left rear wheel weight for tuning purposes, the more weight that the left rear holds, the more traction you will have leaving the corner, but it frees up entry, and vice versa. So the less wheel weight you have, the more the right rear is stuck getting in the corner, but it frees you. It wants to make the car over-rotate a little leaving the corner. So that's something to keep in mind, an easy way to tune your car. But why do we scale a car? Oh man, I was at the Gator Nationals last year. My car was perfect. You know, when you have those really good nights, you don't want to lose that. So you always want to have home base to come back to. My car was right here. So I've come up with just a simple set of ride height gauges. There's no sense in even telling you with a height of mine, because I scale my car, or I check my ride heights on the scales. And so the height of my scales is probably different than the height of your scales. I simply use just a food grade scale from Walmart. They're relatively cheap to get. I mean, you can spend more money and get something nicer and fancier, but this does the trick. I mean, for, I don't know, I think these are $15, $17 a piece or something like that. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to be able to, quote, scale your car. Battery's charged. So the areas, okay, so the first thing I like to do before I scale a car, you might want to back up just a little bit there, is I like to check my toe. And in doing that, I'm going to find a factory groove, and I'm going to hook it in a factory groove and use the same spot front and back. So I'm going to measure the front, pick my point, measure it, then I'm going to come right back here in the back and measure again. I have already set the toe on this car. I'm toed out, the front being wider than the back. I'm toed out 1/4 of an inch. That seems to be kind of a sweet spot where I like it. Different drivers may like something different. The more it's toed out, typically the better. It helps the car turn into the corner, but it will scrub a little speed sometime down the straightaway. So start off by setting your toe before you set it on the scales. And then if you look at this point right here, I like to use the part line between the front plate and the chassis right there. That point right there is what I use as a reference point for my front ride heights on both sides, right front and left front. So I've got a little black line on mine, and I'm going by that little black line there. So, and then if you come around to the back here, there's a factory tab right here on the back of the tailplate. I put my little ride height gauge right there to check my rear ride height. So while you're here in the back, what I like to look for when I'm with, and I scale with nobody on, what I like to look for is my rear A-arms running pretty much level is my baseline. That doesn't say that I'm right or that being up a little bit is wrong or being down a little bit is wrong. That's just what Chris Wall likes in his race cars. But the most important thing is finding what works for you and being able to get back on it and have that baseline. So you may scale your car, find your ride heights, and at a racetrack when you have a practice, raise or lower your front or rear and find out, oh, I like a little more of this or that, and then come back and document that. That's where my car like to be at Springfield or Greystone or whatever. I find that when you find the ride heights that your car likes, I personally don't ever fool with ride heights. I have my baseline where I like to be, and that's it. So we determined that our rear A-arms want to be about level, and it seemed like on these fifth scales, so if you look here across the front, on the scales, my A-arms run uphill, just a little bit uphill to the outside, downhill to the inside, just a little bit. I want to have a little bit of up travel left. So everybody's putting limiters inside their shocks now. I don't like it to be just pegged out all the way against the limiter. I want a little bit of travel left in there. And there again, that's just my preference. So right now, I've got my scales on. When you get the car set on the scale, sometimes you may have to put a little chalk or something in front of the wheel to keep it from rolling. It should want to stay up there pretty good. So it's important, if you want consistent information, just gently settle your car. You ain't got to smash it down. Find where it wants to settle in at. Just a little settle front and back, and then read your numbers. Okay, so right now I'm 514 on the right rear and 813 on the left rear. So I'm 3 pounds of wedge. That's higher than what I want to be. So, but my ride heights were really, really close. So I'm gonna check my ride height. Yeah, my ride height actually might be a little bit snug. Just it's not quite fitting in there. I've got too much left rear in the car, so all I'm gonna do is come over here to the right rear, add a couple rounds on the right rear. And I put little marks to kind of keep count of my rounds. Okay, I put 2 rounds on the right rear. I'm gonna resettle it again. Now I'm 6'2". Oh, I am wanting to roll a little bit here. 6'2" and 8'8". So that's actually perfect. That's where I like to be. I like to be 2 to 2.5 pounds heavier on the left rear. Another thing that I like is, so when I'm checking my front ride heights, when I check it here on the left front, I'm gonna get my gauge where I'm at on the left front, and you can just keep your camera right there, but I'll flip over to the right side. It's a little bit higher. I like to run my right side about 1/8 of an inch higher than the left side. By running your left front just a little bit lower, I run predominantly high bite tracks. That's pretty fast, so the car's kind of down in the left front a little bit, because as soon as you go in the corner, the car is going to roll over, and it keeps the car a little more stable. Now, if you're racing a smaller bull ring, slick racetrack, that may not apply to you. You may want your ride heights to be more square, left front and right front. But anyhow, that's just a real simple way of scaling. This car is really already scaled out pretty good. This is actually a car that we're going to run at the end of the month for our open house. If you're planning on coming to the open house, this is a car that anyone can come and drive. Matter of fact, right after the open house, this car will be for sale. Pretty good car. You might even be interested in that. Anyhow, there you go. Shoot me some questions if you have questions. I'm sure you will have some. But it does not have to be complicated. Don't think, man, I just don't know how to scale my car. It's simple. Just the way to simplify it is pay attention to your left rear wheel weight compared to your right rear, and it's the simplest way to do it. Get your ride height, left rear wheel weight. That's all you need.